Hi everyone, greetings from National Skills Network. For those of you who are following us on our YouTube channel, you would have seen that we have featured quite a few people who are connected with the skilling ecosystem in India. Most importantly, quite a few senior members from Tata Strive, along with few other partners of NSN. And these people have made a huge difference to the ecosystem and have spent years in developing frameworks, in developing systems and processes that make things work and get us the outcomes we want. So it is in the same context that today we get to meet Ms. Ajita Karve, who is the Principal Lead Design and Quality at Tata Strive. So welcome to this talk, Ajita. I'm so happy to meet you today this way and have a chat with you to learn more about the Tata Strive quality framework and the details about it, how this framework works and how people can, use this framework and many other aspects of this framework.
Sure. Thank you, Madhuri. Good afternoon to everybody. And it's indeed a delight to be a part of this forum. Great work is being done, and I'm happy to support in any which ways.
Thank you. Thanks, Ajita, for the nice words. So as everybody knows, and our audience also, I'm sure, have heard so much about quality. We say that quality should become a habit, and quality is more important than quantity. And there are so many things we keep talking about quality, but what happens to quality when we implement is a very big question, right? So does it mean that we compromise on few things, few parameters, and particularly in the skilling ecosystem, where there is a huge focus on meeting the targets, which I would say the quantity aspect of it, meeting the quantity and the quality in skilling, I think is a very, very Herculean task, right? So Ajita, what is your suggestion on this? What are the parameters for quality framework?
Thanks, Madhuri. And I completely agree with you. For some reason, a lot of us think that quality and quantity can't go hand in hand. But I think it's a myth which very successfully has been broken by several organizations who follow very standardized quality frameworks or who make quality a part of their life, a part of everything that they do. And I think the problem basically starts because we have a very heterogeneous understanding of the term quality. Even in the skilling space, what is quality if you ask me versus if you ask somebody else? We all generally tend to look at it from the perspective of our roles. So for me, if I'm a program designer, quality is when I design great programs. If I am somebody who's mobilizing youth, for me, quality is the number of youth that I'm able to get as against my target. So quality by itself is very heterogeneous. And I think therein perhaps starts that entire ambiguity about quality and how do you know if what you're doing is of good quality, how do you measure it, so on and so forth. I think in my experience specifically with Tata Strive, I would say that any skill development initiative, there are two or three things which determine the quality. The relevance, how relevant is what you're doing to the industry, to the demand, how robust is your infrastructure? And when I say infrastructure, it includes all your infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, the technical infrastructure that you have, and also very importantly, the emotional infrastructure, the cultural infrastructure that you build across your initiative. Of course, all of this, which is supported by standardized processes and a continuous outcome monitoring. I think all of these things put together is a wonderful collaborative effort towards quality, and maybe that sort of can sit at the root of the definition.
Yeah, what I like most here is I think the emotional angle that you brought in and the cultural aspects. So, like we say, quality is also cultural. It's there. It is there in the culture of a company, or it's there in the culture of a team. So, in the skilling ecosystem, I think because, like you very rightly said, it's heterogeneous, it's complex, it's very amorphous. I mean, things are happening in so many ways. And how do we ensure something which is so standardized, which is so regulated, which is controlled? Don't you think there are so many dichotomies here? And strive for excellence, I would say, at the same time.
Absolutely, yes. In fact, when you think of it, I think one cannot help being overwhelmed. But I think what is important is to sort of, really boil it down to what is very important. And more importantly, I think, how do you know if you're doing something is really of good quality? I firmly believe that, only what can be measured can be improved. And towards this measurement, you need to have some sort of a quality framework. And
Yeah.
once you define that, I think that is your first step towards giving a tangible form to all these amorphous things that we've been talking about. So, having a quality framework in place, having defined parameters, criteria, which actually defines what quality means to you, whether it is quality of your program, your content, your processes. That perhaps is the first step that you need to take towards the, answering to this dichotomy.
Yeah. So when you talk about the framework, and for our audience, I would like to just mention that we have already featured a chat with Ajita. It's in the form of an article which is available on our website. We'll share the link to that article in the description of this particular video. You can read that up as well. There are basics about Tata Strive's quality framework. Maybe Ajita, it would be good if you can tell us more about it, because we are meeting you in the video format this time. So maybe you can elaborate a little more about the framework, how it works, and what are some of the key insights that we get out of this framework.
So at Strive, we've built something very indigenous, which is called the Tata Strive Quality Framework.
Yeah.
And it has this ethos and something which has been practiced for decades in the Tata world specifically, which is the TBEM, or the Tata Business Excellence Model, and the TEEP, which is the Tata Education Excellence Program. So we've sort of built on the ethos of these two models, which itself derives from the Malcolm Baldrige quality model, which is a well-acclaimed, internationally acclaimed model, which has several perspectives, whether you're in the field of training, or you're a profit-making organization, or any other part for that matter. So that is where we really built the ethos, and that's how we built the framework. Largely, the framework comprises, or it looks at, three critical goals, if you go to see. One of which is ensuring that whatever you do is always improving value to your stakeholders. You're contributing to success, and most importantly, you're contributing to organizational effectiveness by building your capabilities and ensuring learning. So it sort of is a holistic framework where you're not only looking at your numbers, you're not only looking at quality at the cost of quantity, and at the same time, you're not making it person dependent. There is a huge foray towards continuous learning, towards following processes, which makes it sustainable. The TSQ of today, the way we've designed it, looks at four key parameters. One is the robustness of your operational processes. So every process in the skill chain, whether it starts with mobilization and maybe ends with a placement, or some argue it's beyond that, ensuring that there is a sustainable livelihood. So all processes around that, how well are you mobilizing? What do you have a structure whereby you can make plans? How do you deploy those plans on the ground? Then moving on to another very, very critical part of the framework, which is about your teaching learning practices.
Okay.
We know today you have so many reports which says that, despite multiple skilling avenues and interventions, I think I was just reading a report which says only about 46% of your youth, 46.2% of our youth is really employable today.
Yeah.
And why is this? Because I'm sure that there are enough and more people genuinely doing a lot of training efforts. And I think one part is also to ensure that the efforts that are being put in are qualitative, are there towards achieving the end goal. The third part, which forms the crux of the Tata Strive quality framework, is the infrastructure. And here is what we were earlier speaking about. Not only the physical space in terms of how do you have a classroom, do you have a lab, do you have the right equipment, but also how is your classroom environment? Are you providing the emotional safety, security? Are you creating a learning space where you have the youth or your learners who are having opportunities to ask questions, to be inquisitive? And that's an extremely critical path if you want to continue with personal learning or lifelong learning. So that's the third pillar. And the fourth, of course, and one of the most important pillars is the results and outcomes, because without outcomes, really, no matter
Right.
You know, how much of quality you have. If it's not really aligning to the outcomes you desire, then, you know, it's more of a gimmick. So these are the four key pillars that we base the Tata Strive quality framework for. And whatever is an intervention program or the model, we make it an integral part of the operationalization of every intervention.
Okay.
That has been the attempt so far.
Yeah, I was about to come to that actually. You know, when you implement it, when you adopt it within Tata Strive itself, so how does it work? Like maybe you can give us one or two more examples. I like the way you elaborated, giving examples about, mobilizing or even up to the placement. So quality is also at one level quite abstract, right? I mean, it's there, we know, but unless we feel it concretely, with maybe a good example, perhaps it will be difficult to understand. So could you please help us with that?
Sure. So let me just start with the operationalization process. So
Mhm.
yes, we have a quality framework. Now, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
I think one of the key adages of any quality assessment, vice versa, and monitoring and evaluation framework is that in quality, you always want to catch people doing right.
Yeah.
That is the whole idea. It's not a checklist driven approach where you say, okay, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Oh, too bad you haven't done this. It's not
Mm.
that. You want to encourage people to do the right things at the right time, because that is what ensures quality. So every part of the process which is operationalized, which includes whether it's onboarding your partners or vendors or starting or designing a new program, has certain processes which are spoken about, which are drilled into every new partnership or program right at the onset.
Yes.
So even when you're talking to a partner, a prospective partner, and seeing if there is a chance of some sort of an alignment, one of the things we always mention is that, hey, look, you know what, we have a quality framework and we do work in a certain way. And you need to be open and willing to learn that way of life and willing to be assessed for that way of life. That is one of the ways we ensure. Let's
Mhm.
say, for example, because you rightly said that, things are intangible. So let's try and take an example. Let's say placements. Placements is a huge, I think, gaping problem for our industry today. You train, but what about placements? And training without a sustainable livelihood is really of no use. So you have a process which says that, you train people, you assess them, you certify them, and you place them.
Yeah.
Do you say that, okay, your training has been at good quality because you have placed the person? Not sure. You have to go one step beyond and ensure that there are relevant evidences.
Mhm.
If you have trained a person in, let's say, as an automobile technician, has the person really got placed in the right industry, in the right job role, is equally important. So I could say that, okay, the person is placed, my program has met its outcome, I did a good quality program. But what if you find that the person is not really got employed in the field of his choice? If there are no evidences supporting it, if you
Right.
don't have something which actually says, I know in the informal sector, you may not have really offer letters, formal offer letters, etc. But is there some evidence? Is there something you can get written from them? That is the level to which we detail out our quality framework. So it's
Mhm.
not just about a tick mark saying that, post certification you have to place, but after you've placed, show us the evidence. We need to understand that the person is gainfully employed in
Yeah.
the area which is, or at least adjacent to what he has been trained upon. So
Right.
few little things like that, whether your content is being deployed. It's not just enough to say that, okay, I was supposed to finish a curriculum in 6 weeks and I've done it.
Hmm.
It's how well have you done it? Have you followed a certain approach of or a methodology which we typically believe in at Tata Strive, which is the inquiry-based learning methodology? Has that been followed? Have your children actually learned to learn and not just being trained? So those are the few areas where you really, really drill down when you're deploying this framework, and that's what really stands you in good stead.
Yeah, yeah, drilling down, and also I think it's very well integrated with the process itself, right? Every stage, every step, like you said, it's not like a quality checklist that you keep checking, saying this is done, this is done. Like, but let's also look at the kind of system which is existing right now, which needs a lot of monitoring and checks and balances and things. So, for a typical training company who's always in a hurry to train and place people and show that we have met the target, which is actually the scenario with many of the training centers. For them, maybe for most of them, it is like, okay, there is so much of pressure already, right? So it's like, chalta hai, okay, this is done, this is done, this is done. But how do we make sure that this culture of quality gets built in such companies? Because otherwise, like you said very rightly, up to post placement, it will also add to the attrition. It will have so many negative effects, right? And it again comes back, saying, okay, this skilling program is of no use, or whatever it is. So it defeats the goal of skilling itself. So how do you think such companies or organizations can take this up seriously?
Sure. I think that's a very good question, Madhuri. And I would start by saying, first of all, we need to demystify quality or break the myth saying that if you want quantity, you can't follow quality. Quality should be stopped seeing as a roadblock. Instead, it should be seen as an enabler.
Yeah.
What quality really ensures is a standardization, a definition, a clear indication of all those processes which you will be implementing to achieve your final goals. Every time if you have to reinvent the wheel, when you try to bring out a new intervention or a program, it's actually defeating your purpose. It's breaking down your efficiencies, it's adding to the inefficiency, or not to say the amount of efforts and resources you will need to, retrain your resources. Okay, now do it this way, don't do it this way. Last time we did it this way. So if you see the crux of it, investing in a quality thought process really helps. And if I may say, four things, very simple things which can be followed maybe for any organization to start on this journey. I would call it like maybe a four-step approach, or the 4Ds as we call it. Define, design, deploy, and determine outcomes, and continue and take corrective measures. So the 4Ds, so first of all, define what quality means to you in each stage of the value chain. And it need not be some long prone story writing or some 100 processes. It can just be 3 things that you do. Just define what suits you. And I think that's the beauty of these quality frameworks, which are indigenous to you. They will not have an alien process trying to force fit and say, if you do it this way, it's quality. No, you define what quality means for you. Make sure that, you stay by it. Go to the design processes which assure you of fulfilling that quality outcome that you've set out to. Have a mechanism by which you deploy. And here you need your monitoring and evaluation and your assurance to go hand in hand. Ensure that when you are deploying, you're also putting in a governance mechanism, putting in those checks and balances which are continuously measuring, so that you don't see quality as a cost. It's merely then coming and ensuring that you've done all the right things the right way. And finally, in the end, determine that all your aligned outcomes have been achieved. If not, go back, take corrective measures, just start the process again. Define what went wrong, design something to correct it, deploy it, and then go back again. So I think simple steps, all of us do it. I think just a little more mindfulness and not being overwhelmed by this whole quality thing might help.
Yeah, correct. And I think also this aspect about like a formative kind of an evaluation that we keep doing, right? So more like that, I guess, which gets inbuilt into the mechanism of any training company. Because I think ultimately quality manifests in the kind of candidates you are sending to the industry, isn't it? That's where the actual screening happens, because are they going to do the kind of work that they're supposed to do in the kind and meet the expectations and things. So finally, it reflects on the candidates that, we are churning out of these skilling programs. So Ajita, now connected with this is also, accountability, like you said, who's responsible? Like I'm responsible for my own output, or with my particular role, I will ensure this. So there's an element of accountability. There's also an element of integrity, doing things rightly and all. Now, how do you think technology support systems can ensure that quality is really implemented and it becomes a part of the system in which we are operating?
I think technology plays an extremely critical role. In fact, it acts as an enabler. Okay. We've been one of the lucky ones at Strive that having TCS as a partner from day one, we had this framework and we really reaped a lot of benefits. So when you look at technology, it works in maybe 2, 3 different ways. One, as an enabler of any part of your skill chain, whether it is mobilization, collecting your data, ensuring that, the integrity of the data, like you rightly said, ensuring integrity of the data, ensuring that you minimize information asymmetry so that the right decisions can be taken by the right people because they have the data available to do their analysis. That's one part of it. Second part, how technology can really be an enabler, and I think we've all learned it the hard way over the last 2 years,
Right.
is actually reaching out that last mile, reaching out to those youth who more than ever needed, and that was a dichotomy, more than ever the youth needed to be trained and quickly skilled so that they could earn and be employable. And at the same time, because of the disruption with the pandemic, there was no way to reach out. So technology actually played a critical part. So actually instigating hybrid models of learning, supporting your learning process, right, by using blended learning or e-learning, ensuring that you have assessments which can be technology enabled and thereby again maintaining an integrity.
Yeah.
So very often we've heard stories, that you train somebody and somebody who takes the assessment is a different person. And that again impacts something you were saying earlier, about the quality of the candidate who eventually reaches the industry, may not even be the same one. So ensuring that integrity in the assessments, I think these are underlying things which technology can really, really help us. And more important than that, I think the standardization of the entire deployment. You have standardized data collection tools, you have standardized metrics, you have teams who have information and can take informed decision. It takes away the ad hocism, or it takes away the person dependence. So I think to that effect, technology really plays a vital role every stage of the value chain. So it's not just one part. I think it's like an overall encompassing framework, enabling every stakeholder.
Right. Right, that's true. And like you said, technology now it's become a part of our lives, especially in the post-COVID scenario. So it's kind of natural now for us to think of anything that we do with technology, and blending quality framework with technology is also, I think, something which people can think of doing in their skilling programs. So Ajita, before we come to the end of this conversation, which has been so enlightening, I would like to know if there is something like a few key points that you wish to share with our audience so that they take back this message of not just quality being important, like we discussed just now. Everybody knows it is important, we need to follow, but there are few hindrances, few barriers, and few other things that come in the way. So how do we overcome these obstacles?
Sure. I think that's a rather difficult question, but standardizing the skilling ecosystem or the offerings is, I believe, is one of the key things that we need for an outcome which is qualitative. Of course, given our legacy, given our systems, any knee-jerk reaction will only be detrimental or counterproductive. I think one of the few things that we can start to take these steps towards quality is to, first of all, I just mentioned, simplify it. It's simple. Just have a framework in place, write out your processes, form those processes which come directly from your stakeholders, and that really helps us a lot. If you have the buy-in of your stakeholders, standardizing a process becomes simple. And once you standardize the processes, you build efficiencies, you meet your outcomes, automatically quality becomes a part of what you do. And I think following these processes, engaging the right type of manpower, using technology as an enabler, and ensuring that you have a robust framework which is continuously helping you to measure and keep abreast of what's happening. I think these few things will definitely be a huge step.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Ajita, for sharing these points and elaborating on them so very well in such simple manner with so many examples. I think like all of us believe in things which are like, which we say that it has a stamp or a seal of something like an ISO certified company, or when we buy some food, we want to look at it, whether it's been quality checked, or there in every aspect of our life, we make sure that we get good quality. So why not look for that and implement quality parameters and frameworks and meet the standard requirements, so that skilling becomes much more impactful and also has a much more longer shelf life than what we usually think of, and the candidates are really benefited. So thanks a lot, Ajita, for joining us today. We will be in touch with you to learn more about quality frameworks. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine.
Thank you, guys.